Hey there, chatters. I'm Nat.
And I'm Kat, and welcome to the Crime Chat. I am your forensic femme fatale, Natalie, your true crime addict connoisseur.
We're just two normal girls obsessed with dark crimes, evil minds, and occasionally the unknown.
And here's your disclaimer, chatters. The following Crime Chat contains adult content, and I'm assuming violent scenarios today, so your listener discretion is advised.
You've been warned. And before we get into today's Crime Chat, Kat, what have you done?
Well, I guess last weekend before last, as we're recording this, I went to St. Augustine and had a great time.
Did you run into any ghosts?
We did go on ghost hunts, and we did not.
Okay.
Well, okay, there was one. Okay, there was one ghost that was at a tavern. The first thing we did was a ghost tour. It was like a pub crawl. And we were supposed to go to 4 locations. The third location was closed because it was under renovation. So we didn't get a chance to go to that one, but we still did go to 3. The third one that we went to, I want to say was called the White Lion. So that's where the tour ended. And we stayed there and we were drinking and stuff. And my girlfriend and I, so it was my friend that lives in Melbourne, her and her husband came up. We were, kind of hanging out, just having fun. And go over to, after we got told the ghost story, basically at the White Lion, there is a guy, George something. I can't remember his last name. But he was in the Civil War or something and ended up retiring. And they gave him this house and was like, thank you for your service. Here's some land in the house.
Nice.
Yeah. And what ended up happening is he was engaged to somebody. They were about to get married, and she left him for another man. I don't know if she was actually living in the house at that time, but she left him for another man. So George finds another lady, and
oh God,
they get engaged.
Okay.
Well, she moves into the house.
Okay.
And it wasn't long after she moved in that he was found, quote unquote, as the tour guide said, face down, ass up, in the tub. So obviously that's on the second floor. They didn't know actually how he died. If it was natural causes, if it was the new fiance, if it was the old fiance, and her new lover. Don't know exactly how he died. So my friend Alyssa, she downloaded the Ghost SLS, the Ghost Tube, the SLS and the Vox, and she had the Vox going, and I had the SLS going, and we were recording at the same time. Well, the little stick figure appeared at the top of the stairs.
Oh, you posted that. I saw that.
I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah. So we think that's George. I don't know. But as we went over there a couple times, and then the bartender, when we were over there, maybe the second time, she comes over and she's like, "You'd have better luck on the other staircase."
Oh.
So obviously they know the story.
Yeah.
So we went to the other staircase. Didn't get anything, really. But it was so cool. It was kind of neat. I don't know if that's, it was a stick figure.
That is cool, yeah. I never run into ghosts, but I try. You want to know something creepy, though? When I moved into this house, my mom came to visit me the first time. My mother claims she's, clairvoyant. And she was walking to her bedroom, and she's like, I feel something. I feel the presence of a little girl. I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. And I did that little ghost app, and I was walking around the house, and it was nothing. And then I got to the room that she was in, and a little stick figure was sitting on the bed.
No way.
Yeah.
So then the next night we went to the St. Augustine Lighthouse and did a ghost tour there. You've been to the lighthouse?
No. St. Augustine, no. Mm-mm.
What? Yeah.
I'm sure it's beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely is. It's 250 steps straight up. So it's pretty it's
a workout.
It's a workout. You're climbing some stairs.
Yeah.
So, but when we did it that night, there was lightning in the area and they wouldn't let us go up. I mean, I get it, right? We still did the grounds, still got the ghost stories and stuff, went into the keeper's house. And apparently, because there was a couple of girls that died in an accident there, the keeper's daughters, or the guy, not the keeper's daughters, the guy they were rebuilding it or something. And his daughters had died there. And they said that the little girls like to play jokes on people. So you have to watch your shoelaces, because sometimes they tie shoelaces together, or they'll tie a shoelace to if you're standing up by a rail, they'll tie the shoelace to a rail so your foot doesn't move. Little things like that.
Once it becomes physical, that freaks me out a little bit.
Well, the keeper apparently also is very strict with men and their behaviors. So if men go into his house with a ball cap on, he's been known to knock it off. And also, like, he's been known to kind of be somewhat aggressive if, like, you're rude to your lady. If the guys are, like, rude to their family members or whatever. Yeah. And he also apparently likes to massage women's shoulders.
Where is this place? The Lighthouse? I'm going.
It's the St. Augustine Lighthouse and Museum. They do day tours and everything like that. And we had done the day tour a few years ago, but we hadn't done the ghost tour.
Right.
But you know who has done the ghost tour? Shane and Ryan. They did an episode from BuzzFeed Unsolved on their Supernatural. Yeah. And I don't know if they've... No, it was from BuzzFeed Unsolved, the Supernatural. And I don't think they've done it on Ghost Files. At least I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Well, like, because the Winchester House they went back to once they got to Ghost Files, they did Winchester House again. And then they did another one, it might be Queen Mary, the ship. Mm-hmm. I think they did that one as well.
The Winchester, I mean, that is on my bucket list. I have to go there.
I know. So that was exciting.
It's a beautiful place to go visit. Beautiful.
Oh my gosh, yes. It was hot, but it's also hot here. The field temperature in South Carolina today was 114.
Florida is not that hot. No.
But we're not coastal, so you don't get that natural coastal.
Well, we're on the Gulf, so we don't have that breeze.
But there's still more of a breeze
That's true.
than 2 hours inland.
That's true.
But the other thing is, while we were in St. Augustine, we went to this place called the Tipsy Duck.
Uh-huh.
And they serve kind of like wine mixed drinks. It was interesting because a lot of them were based from like wine, but you could get a mule that had wine in it, like how they mixed it and everything. Mm-hmm. So that was really cool. And then they for every drink you got a duck, like a little ducky.
Yeah.
And they put it in the top of your drink. And then there was a store that was attached to it, and you got like these, you could get different size ducks. So these were the little ducks that they
were floating on your drink when they serve. Oh, okay.
Well, they're supposed to squeak.
That's adorable.
And Chris got, because we love turtles, so he got this one. It's like a turtle duck. And then he's like, I got you something. It's a zombie duck.
That is hilarious. I love it.
It was the coolest place. Like, I don't know. It was so much fun. We just kind of wanted to hang out there. Chris found it, and we're like, we could do this in between. Because we did, like, the Fountain of Youth. We did a torture museum. So we had, like, other things in the area that we were doing. And then, so we're like, let's go to this Tipsy Duck place in between. It was so cool. I'm really glad that we went. It was a lot of fun. That torture museum was insane, too.
Like, there's so much.
Right. Yeah. We went, I think this was our third or maybe fourth time doing, like, a few days in St. Augustine. I think it's our fourth, actually. Yeah. So.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah. So that's been my excitement. We did watch a movie last night called Civil War. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. There's some areas that might be a little slow action-wise.
Right.
But it is a very, in my opinion, accurate depiction.
Okay.
It was Kirsten Dunst.
Okay. I like her.
I hadn't seen her in something in a minute. And she's...
quality actress.
Oh, yeah. She's like 42, 43. Yeah.
Is she really?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I remember when she was a little peanut.
I know. Well, she was in Interview with the Vampire.
As a little peanut.
Yeah. She was Claudia.
And she was an amazing actress back then. Like, she just blew my mind how well she played that part.
One of my favorite movies she's in is Elizabethtown with Orlando Bloom.
Never seen it. Is it good?
It's funny and sad at the same time, but it's a perfect, like, mix.
Yeah.
It's really good. And I think she was fantastic in it. She was trying to give directions to Orlando Bloom during the movie, and they were going to, the movie's called Elizabethtown, but he was going to where his family lived in Elizabethtown. And she's yelling at him, like, down the airport terminal as he landed, because she was the flight attendant. And she's like, 42B! 42B!
What, her seat?
You have to take the B. No, the exit.
Oh, okay.
So she's like, 42B. Every time I hear like a exit or whatever, I always like, 42B. Anyway, it's silly. I like that movie. I think it wasn't very popular.
Yeah.
It's probably early 2000s-ish.
Okay.
Yeah. But so one thing that we found out, like when we were watching the movie last night, and of course I wikied her because I was like, what's the last thing that she's been in?
Right.
And I'm going to have to wiki it again. Hold on. She is.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
I think she may have got married and had kids.
She did. She married. So she had 2 kids. Jesse Plemons. You would recognize him if you saw him.
Okay.
I didn't recognize the name, but as soon as I clicked on it, I was like, oh, yeah, like, I totally recognize who he is. Did you ever watch Love and Death? The Candy something story that was on HBO?
Oh, yes.
You remember the Lady Candy?
Yes.
It was Elizabeth Olsen played in it, and she played Candy, and then the guy that she had the affair with was Jesse Plemons. He played in that series. But he's been in a lot of things too. So they had their first son May of 2018, and then she had their second child May of 2021, and then they got married July of 2022.
Okay. She's been busy.
And so in the movie Civil War, he also made a cameo appearance as a militiaman. Mm. He got run over by a car. But it was like it was just, I think he was, as far as like the credits, it was just labeled militiaman.
Yeah.
He didn't actually get a named credit in it either. I thought that was kind of funny. But I didn't recognize, so there's another guy in there that I don't, like, I recognize his face. I don't really know his name. Mm-hmm. A couple other people, but I thought it was good. There was some slow parts. So it's basically from a journalist's perspective, okay, covering wartime. Mm. So you see all the stuff going on, yeah, but it's really kind of has a little twist because it's from the journalist's perspective in like a gunfight kind of thing. So yeah, it's crazy.
Interesting. I gotta check that out.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm done now. That's it. What about you?
Finally watched A Good Marriage. I know we spoke about that during one of the episodes, because it's kind of like loosely based on BTK, but it was like a Stephen King novel.
Yes.
You can tell that we do a crime podcast because I picked that movie apart. Like, I was sitting there and she's going through the crime and all this stuff. I'm like, well, that's not right. Yeah. They would pick that up. The police would be all over that. My husband's like, can I just watch the movie? I'm like, no, she's doing everything wrong. He's like, I don't know whether to be scared or just like fascinated with the fact that you know that. I'm like, listen, I don't know the name of the actress. She was great. Have you seen it?
A Good Marriage?
In the movie, she makes like a deal with the devil. She found out about his little secret and it's like, well, can you give me a second chance? Can you forget? She's like, just make me happy. Whoa, girl. Like, who's the villain? It was interesting. Mm-hmm.
So it says stars Joan Allen. Anthony LaPaglia, Kristen Connolly, and Stephen Lang.
Great actress. Love her.
Yeah.
So that's basically it.
We've had to catch up, guys. Natalie and I haven't really chatted much, but we're chatting now, and we're going to give you a crime chat.
Yes.
So you asked me to go over the psychology of lying to do like as an introduction into your story. Mm-hmm. I don't know what your story is about. I don't even think I've heard of this story, but I hope what I am going to give you will lead into your case. Okay. So, Encyclopedia Britannica defines lying as any communicative act that aims to cause receivers of the communication to adopt or persist in a false belief. However, because of its generality, this definition invites questions about its key terms. There is no universally accepted definition of lying. Rather, there exists a spectrum of views, ranging from those that exclude the most forms of deception from the category of lying to those who treat lying and deception as different words of the same phenomena. So, kind of get into that a little bit. Lying has been of interest for thousands of years, and it's evidenced by its role in literature, theology, philosophy, and more recently, psychology and popular culture. Philosophers from Plato onward have been concerned with the nature of lying, what it is that distinguishes lying from other forms of deceptive behavior, as well as questions concerning the morality or immorality of telling lies. In contrast, psychologists have been primarily concerned with the development of the capacity for lying during childhood. Our motives for lying, the incident of lying in everyday life, and the means by which lies can be detected. Philosophical opinion is divided as to whether lying is morally wrong. Plato claimed that in the Republic, rulers of a just society must disseminate quote-unquote noble lies in order to promote social harmony among the masses, and he apparently thought that the moral valence of lying depended on the context in which the lie was told. The study of lying was analyzed from Plato then on for centuries, but psychologists did not carry that work forward until mid to end 20th century, which kind of surprised me. Psychologists have mainly been concerned with the developmental aspects of lying, the frequency with which people lie, motives for lying, and methods for detecting. The capacity to lie is more important in the developmental acquisition, so children are unable to lie until they develop that theory of mind. Once this is developed and children are able to grasp the fact that people perceive the world from a variety of perspectives, they then begin to realize that people can conceal information from one another. The theory of mind is usually in a place by the age of 3. However, there is some evidence that children begin to behave deceptively as early as 6 months of age.
Really?
Yeah. I thought that was interesting. I'm thinking of my granddaughter. Psychologists have found that most people lie far more frequently than they are prepared to admit, even to themselves. The most commonly mentioned figure for the incidence of lying come from a 2002 study conducted by American psychologist Robert S. Feldman that suggests people lie on average 2 to 3 times for every 10 minutes of conversation.
What? Really?
That's a lot. Psychologists have identified a number of motives for lying, chief among them which are the need to preserve self-esteem, the wish to avoid conflict, and the desire to manipulate others to behave in ways that are of interest to oneself.
Yeah.
A 2018 study described the psychological process behind lies on the basis of 2 factors, the beneficiary and the motivation. Like, what is the benefit of lying and why do I lie? The decision to lie is influenced by the beneficiary. The motivation behind the lie can be to either obtain a desirable outcome or prevent an undesirable outcome. Researchers came up with 6 types of lies based on the reasons that lead people to be dishonest. 1. Self-oriented beneficial lies. These lies are told to obtain positive outcomes for oneself. For example, you find a $20 bill and you claim that it's yours. Number 2, self-oriented protective lies. These lies are directed at avoiding a negative outcome or loss for oneself. For example, falsely denying hitting another car while parked. Like, you hit a parked car and you're like, oh, no, I didn't do that. 3, other-oriented beneficial lies. These lies are aimed at securing positive outcomes or achieving gains for others. For example, lying to your supervisor to support a coworker's claim that they're sick, covering for them. Number 4, other-oriented protective lies. These lies are spoken to protect others from loss or negative outcomes. For example, falsely telling your parents that you're doing well to prevent them from worrying.
Yeah.
Number 5, I don't know how to say this word, Pareto, beneficial lies. These lies are told to benefit the liar as well as another person. For example, falsifying the results in a group project to get a better grade.
We've all done that.
Yeah. Number 6, Pareto protective lies. These lies are spoken to prevent loss to oneself and another person. For example, a team manager telling superiors at work that they could not meet the important deadline due to a technical issue, rather than blaming their team for not completing the task or taking personal responsibility or accountability. Experimental studies have revealed the fact that most people are extremely bad at detecting lies. Most people are able to correctly identify lies just over 50% of the time. So like half and half, I guess.
Yeah.
Seasoned law enforcement officers and judges are only marginally better. Like,
really?
Yeah. A small proportion of the population, less than 1% of the people that were in this study, are naturally talented at detecting lies. American psychologist Paul Ekman showed that people who are good at detecting deception pay careful attention to nonverbal cues. And that's the other part that you get taught as law enforcement. You have to pay attention to their nonverbals. Alterations in the speaker's facial expression, called microexpressions, are especially revealing. Ekman also showed that subjects can be taught to recognize and interpret microexpressions, a skill that results in dramatic improvement to their ability to discern lies. So, What type of personality commonly falls victim to being lied to? Liars do not target anyone in particular. It's simply the way they relate to people. Side note, narcissists and psychopaths, on the other hand, do target people who can be useful to them.
Yeah.
That being said, if people are constantly lied to, it may suggest that 1, they're not very in touch with themselves, or 2, they really want to believe the lie instead of facing the truth. That's why they don't or can't pick up on clues or signals that a liar subconsciously shows. Lying doesn't necessarily mean that they have a personality disorder either. Nearly all people lie now and then, but a person is lying on a regular basis unnecessarily or in order to further their own interests or at someone else's expense. The question may be raised about their psychological state. Being a compulsive liar can indicate issues concerning an individual's self-esteem, their understanding of what distinguishes right from wrong, or a lack of a strong sense of self. And I think a lot of times too, like if people try to, like in court cases, they try to plead insanity and they're like, one of the things that they get evaluated on is, did this person know right from wrong? And as I mean, you probably know this too, a child forensic interviewer, you have to establish a baseline with the child that you're talking to make sure that they understand what's right from wrong. Yeah. Right? Now, from a current view of lying, it can be concluded that lying is part of communication and a form of social behavior which is involved in interacting with others. Lying arises from a self-indulgent nature of humans to avoid pain and increase pleasure. It can also be seen that lies are not only for personal gain, but also for others' gain as well, and to avoid harming or affecting oneself and avoid hurting others. So that's, I hope that helped. Did that help you for this? It's a little bit of psychology of lying.
Question, do you feel omitting something is lying?
So I almost got into that, but it was a lot.
I bet, yeah.
So omission, because the stuff that I was looking at, specifically the Encyclopedia Britannica, so originally when, like, in the philosophical, like, thousands of years ago when they were studying lying, when they initially started studying lying, there was some people, a theorist, who claimed that omitting some information, is different than blatantly not telling the truth. To me, I do think omission is part of lying.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion. Because you are intentionally leaving something out, which also means you are intentionally not telling the whole truth.
Right.
So that's my perspective.
I agree.
But they did study omission to some level and kind of gave it some sort of justification. But
it's so interesting.
We get lied to every day.
Yeah, and I think this is so relevant in the time that we're living in right now because lying is everywhere.
It is.
Thank you for that intro. That was good.
You're welcome.
Well, I know you're not familiar with the story that I'm going to do. Before we get started, though, I want to give viewers an additional warning. Please be advised that today's discussion involves themes of abduction, emotional abuse, and sexual abuse. Our crime chat is going to be about the dark reality behind the novel Lolita.
Okay.
Today's story is going to be about surviving a predator, and it's going to be the real story of Sally Horner, who Lolita is based on.
Oh, okay.
In 1948, 11-year-old Sally Horner was kidnapped and abused for 21 months by a con man pretending to be an FBI agent.
Ooh.
Almost 2 years. The only trace of her was this haunting photo behind me of her on a swing. That was it. Her abduction led to the tragic inspiration of Vladimir Nabokov.
Yeah.
This novel is extremely controversial. The story of innocence lost, bravery, and the dark side of human nature. Sally Horner was born April 18th, 1937 in Camden, New Jersey. Her mother, Ella, was born on August 15th, 1905 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Ella came from a hardworking family and she developed a strong sense of responsibility at a young age. Ella met Sally's father, William Horner, in her early 20s. The couple married, and then they ended up moving to Camden, New Jersey, and they settled down, seeking to further opportunities for their family.
I lived close to Camden when I was up there.
Did you?
I lived up there, yeah. Yep. Camden's rough.
Camden is a little rough, but the college is there, Rutgers.
It is. Yes, it is. It's right across the river from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oof, it is rough.
A little rough, yeah.
In Camden, they had their first daughter, Susan. She was born on March 22nd, 1932. And then a few years later, they had their second daughter, Sally, and she was born April 18th, 1937. Ella worked as a seamstress and William worked as a mechanic, and both of them worked very long hours to take care of their family. However, their family was overshadowed by William's struggle with alcoholism.
Yes.
Tragically, William's battle with alcohol ended when Sally was just 5 years old. He basically drank himself to death, leaving Ella and the girls alone in the world. Ella was very strong, and she tried to keep her family together, and she did. She did a good job. She was a single mom in 1937, and she was determined to provide for her girls. Now, Ella worked extra jobs to make ends meet. Ella also did her best to give Susan and Sally a stable, loving home, but the pressures of being a single mom in the 1940s were immense.
Yeah.
With limited resources, Ella had to make difficult decisions and sacrifices. This meant long hours at her job, meaning that she couldn't really spend time with them. And then, they were staying with neighbors and friends. And then occasionally they were by themselves.
Sure.
Sally was particularly affected by the loss of her father. She lost the support system and he was basically ripped out of her life. And also watching her mom go through new stresses, dealing with trying to keep the family together. I mean, that must have been very hard on the kids.
Yeah.
Sally Horner was a bright student. She was in 5th grade at the time. She attended East Camden High School. This high school actually went from 5th
to 12th.
Yeah.
All the way through. Oh, okay.
Some high schools did that.
I think that's a Northeast thing.
Yeah.
I think so.
Despite the many challenges she faced at home, Sally excelled academically and was well liked by teachers. Sally was an honor student, and she was also the president of her Junior Red Cross Club. However, Sally's school life was not without difficulties. The financial strain on the family meant that she didn't have the same luxuries as everybody else, and this made her feel very insecure and eager to fit in with the girls and her classmates.
Yeah.
One day, a group of girls who she really and desperately wanted to fit in with dared her to commit a crime. They dared her go to Woolworths. Remember Woolworths? The store? Okay.
Yeah.
Which was right around the block where the school was. So when they were leaving school, like the store was on the way home, they said, "We want you to take a 5-cent notebook and come out and prove that you stole it." I guess she felt like she really wanted to fit in with the girls and she wanted to be liked. So she's like, okay. Sally went and grabbed a 5-cent notebook and slipped it into her bag. She started to walk to the door, and then all of a sudden she was stopped. An older man with a long face, a hooked nose, and a scar on his cheek introduced himself as Frank Warren, an FBI agent.
That's a very FBI agent name, Frank Warren.
Is it?
Think about it.
Is it?
I'm Special Agent Frank Warren with the FBI.
I just think John Douglas.
Maybe it's those two first names.
So now he stated that he saw what she had just done and that if she didn't obey, that he was going to arrest her. So this poor kid was frozen in fear.
Yeah.
So this is where his lying comes into play because nobody knew his age. Like people thought he was 44 or 50. Nobody knew how old he was, but let's just say he was between 44 to 50.
In terms of aging, that's a pretty significant line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes. His name was Frank LaSalle. Frank was born on July 4th. July 4th.
God bless
1897
America.
in Atlantic City, New Jersey, to Italian immigrant parents Antonio and Maria LaSalle. Antonio worked as a fisherman and Maria was a homemaker. Frank was one of 6 children growing up in the household, and this household was marked with poverty and frequent conflict.
Sure.
His whole life, Frank exhibited troubled behavior, including stealing and becoming a serious pathological liar. He lied about everything. I mean, everything. No one really knew his age. Nobody knew where he lived. He had a bunch of different names, such as Jack O'Keefe, Harry Patterson, and Frankie Frog.
Frankie Frog.
Frank was a manipulative and cunning individual. He had a charismatic demeanor he used towards his advantage. He would convince others that he was respectable and a trustworthy man. Beneath this facade, however, he harbored deeply disturbing tendencies and a complete lack of empathy. When he stopped Sally, he was already a convicted sex offender.
Oh, so for adults or for children?
For children.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He had a history of targeting young girls and luring them into dangerous situations. His first crime dates back to August 1937 when he was charged with enticing a minor He was sentenced to 5 years in prison at Trenton State, and then he walked out of jail in January 1948, 2 months before he met Sally.
So he was fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said to Sally that he will let her walk if she promises one thing: not to tell anybody about the run-in and to keep in touch. Sally, thinking that she should always obey a police officer, agreed. Sally left the store and ran home. The very next day, Frank returned, bumping into her on her way home from school. He told her she was in trouble and the FBI wanted him to take her to the office in Atlantic City. He stated that he could help her straighten things out and that he would let her know when it's time for them to go to the office. So he was grooming her, saying, you're in trouble, we gotta go.
I was going to say, he's preparing her while he does his own preparations and like comes up with this plan. Yeah. He's preparing her so she doesn't fight him when she's actually abducted. Yeah.
A little while later in June, Frank turned up again. He stated it's time to go to Atlantic City, but this is top secret. And she couldn't tell anybody. And this made her nervous because of her mother and her sister.
Yeah.
But Frank already had a plan. Frank ended up calling the mom, Ella, stating that he was a dad from one of her classmates at school. And he said, we are going on vacation for like 2 weeks. We have plenty of room, with the family. She wants to spend time with her friend. We wanted Sally to go with us. And Ella, although she was uneasy, she figured, you know what? He sounds like a nice guy. He's a family man. He knows my daughter. My daughter has his daughters. They're friends. And Ella really wanted Sally to fit in, be happy. And she figured this is a great opportunity. It's not like she's able to take them on vacation anyway. So she's just like, okay, 2 weeks. All right. Now, Sally was officially abducted on June 14th, 1948, when she and Frank rented a room at a boarding house in Atlantic City. They posed as father and daughter.
I mean, they could get away with it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The trip was supposed to be for 2 weeks. During the trip, Frank made Sally write letters and call her mother saying that the vacation was going great. She would see her soon. So Ella was none the wiser of what was going on. The final letter arrived on July 31st, 6 weeks after they left. Ella got very nervous and called the police. They investigated the sender's address, which led them to a vacant home in Atlantic City. Frank, I think, had already figured this out, that he needed to get moving.
Right.
He did leave stuff behind, like luggage.
Oh, yeah.
But he also left this eerie photo he took of her swinging on the swings. And that was the only thing that the police had for 21 months.
Was Ella able to identify this picture as Sally?
Yes.
Okay.
The photo was printed in newspapers across the eastern United States. Police launched an 8-state investigation looking for Sally and Frank. By then, they knew exactly who Frank was and that he was trouble. Frank took Sally to hide out in Baltimore. That's when Frank sexually assaulted Sally for the first time.
After staying with her for 6 weeks, or after she was with him for 6 weeks?
Yeah. I wonder if he was just grooming her. I guess it was a vacation, and she was still in communication with the mom, so maybe he didn't want to rattle her too much. Now, Frank found work and enrolled Sally into a Catholic grammar school. He changed her name to Madeline LaPlante. When neighbors asked questions, Frank got paranoid. Then he fled to Dallas, Texas. This is when she turned 12 years old, and Frank celebrated with her, saying, we're going to go to Texas. Let's go celebrate, Was
it her actual birthday?
Yeah.
Okay, not like a fake birthday or anything that he gave. Okay.
Sally still believed Frank was an FBI agent.
Sure.
They moved into a trailer park in Texas. They were still posing as father and daughter. Frank changed her name yet again to Florence. And the rape and sexual assault continued. Frank demanded Sally cook for him, take care of the house, and go to school. While she was at school, she was making connections with other girls.
Sure.
And Sally finally confided in one of the girls she met at the school about how Frank was treating her. So I don't think she told them there was sexual assault. I think she just told them, he's really mean to me. I always got to do all these I think she was saying that. Yeah. All she said to her was like, well, that's really wrong, and you should push back on his demands. So I'm assuming Sally only came clean about all the chores she has to do and, how nasty he is at her.
What did Frank call himself to Sally? Was it Frank?
Yeah.
It was. Okay, so when she says Frank, not like my dad, that might be a little...
Frank Warren. the FBI agent.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. But I'm thinking, like, if he's going and he's getting a job and they're making, meeting people,
Right.
is he going to go by Frank Warren? That's what, and plus he gave her a different last name, LaPlante. And,
He did.
Or LaPlante, and what was the other one?
No, he didn't give her a second last name in Texas. Yeah. Only in Baltimore he did that.
Okay. Oh, okay.
At this point, Sally needed help. She needed to be rescued. One of the neighbors in the Dallas trailer park, Ruth, noticed something weird. Ruth saw disturbing signs of their relationship. Frank's controlling nature and his insistence that he always needed to keep Sally close to him and within sight. Mm-hmm. This set off alarm bells for Ruth. And not to mention, Ruth is a mother of a 5-year-old daughter. So she was overprotective. And she's like, maybe she had a personal experience about being manipulated in this way. So it definitely triggered something in her. Mm-hmm. Ruth tried a couple of times to get Sally to open up, but the young girl remained tight-lipped on her situation. Yeah. Shortly after, Ruth and her husband moved to San Jose, California, because the husband got a better job. Ruth stated that she couldn't shake the feeling or concern for Sally. Ruth came up with a plan. She sent Frank and Sally letters once a week, telling them, oh my God, San Jose's got job opportunities and it's so lucrative and there's so much you can do here, which enticed Frank to look into this. And in February 1950, 20 months after Sally left home for what she believed she was going on vacation to Atlantic City, Frank relocated her again to El Cortez Motor Inn in San Jose. And this is the same inn where Ruth was staying with her family. One day, while Frank was out looking for work, Ruth seized the opportunity and invited Sally over. The 12-year-old finally broke down and revealed that Frank had kidnapped her, but withheld details of the sexual abuse. Ruth acted swiftly, allowing Sally to make a long-distance phone call. Unfortunately, no one answered because back in Camden, her mother, Ella, worried about her daughter. She lost her job. She couldn't pay the bills. She didn't have a phone anymore.
Sure.
That breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Thankfully, Sally managed to reach her uncle, and she stated, I'm with a lady friend in California. Send the FBI after me, please. Now, this time, the real FBI intervenes, placing Sally in a children's shelter. When Frank returned, he was met by law enforcement officers and surrendered without resistance. After 21 agonizing months, Sally was finally free. The legal system actually worked pretty swiftly to bring him to justice. Frank, a convicted sex offender, faced serious charges that would ensure that he would never be able to harm another child. When Sally was on her way back home to see her mother for the first time, she stated to a reporter that her greatest fear is that her mother would reject her, thinking that she was no longer pure.
Wow.
Breaks my heart. Yeah. However, Sally wasn't entirely wrong. When they reunited in Philly, Ella reassured everyone, and when I say everyone, I mean the reporters, by giving a statement to the newspaper, saying, whatever she's done, I can forgive her.
Wow.
What? You're putting that on
whatever
her?
She's done, I can forgive her. Oh, thank you.
She was kidnapped by a 50-year-old man. Victim blaming BS. And it gets worse.
Aww.
They all knew what Sally had endured, but in the 1950s, people were unsympathetic towards victims of sexual abuse. They actually blamed her for being sexually abused. So now at home, the attitude was, let's pretend this ordeal never happened.
Yeah, if you don't talk about it, it never
Sweep
happened,
that sucker right under the rug.
Yeah.
Poor kid didn't have any treatment, no therapy. She had nobody to help her cope. She was just stuck in a world of silence about what had just happened. Oh my God. Frank LaSalle was indicted on charges of kidnapping and statutory rape. During the trial, the prosecution presented a compelling case detailing the manipulation and abuse Sally had endured over 21 months of captivity. Witnesses, including Ruth, testified that Frank's controlling behavior was just horrible. Sally provided a heartbreaking testimony recounting the psychological and physical torment she suffered at the hands of Frank. Her bravery in facing her abuser and recounting her ordeal in court was a pivotal moment in the trial.
Sure.
It drew public attention to the impact of what Frank did and his crimes. But once again, think of Sally not having any support and just saying, you got to show up and tell the story to everyone now.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, your own mother doesn't want to hear secret, but now you have to tell it to the world. Like, it's just
Yeah.
like, that's terrible. April 3rd, 1950, Frank LaSalle was sentenced to 30 to 35 years in prison for his crimes.
Okay.
Frank's incarceration brought a sense of justice to Sally and her family, although the emotional scars would remain with her
Sure.
for the rest of her life.
Absolutely.
Even after her bravery at the trial, the stigma attached to what had happened to her made it really difficult for her to return to school and feel normal again.
Mm-hmm.
Sally was often ridiculed. She was called cruel names and shamed and bullied. When she did go to school, she was bullied, and all this was coming from the same classmates that
who told her to go take her 5
Right.
to go steal this. So oh my God. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully they're in hell right now anyways.
Yeah. She came home to judgment and cruelty.
Yeah.
Like, Sally was struggling.
That's ridiculous.
I know. Sally found a friend, Carol Stark. Carol stood by Sally. She listened to her. She helped her deal with the trauma of what Frank did. Carol actually surprised Sally with a real vacation. Carol went and bought bus tickets to the Jersey Shore. It was about an hour away from where they were.
Mm-hmm.
They hopped on a bus. They ended up just going to the beach, walking the pier, and they had a blast. It was a great vacation.
How old was Sally at this time?
15.
Okay.
Here is where she met 20-year-old Eddie Baker. Eddie was a nice guy, okay? And he had a car. He was at that age.
Mm-hmm.
Now, during the trip, he took them out cruising the strip in the car.
Yeah.
He treated them very well. It just added to their wonderful vacation that they made a friend.
Mm-hmm.
During the night, Eddie said, listen, I have to go back home. And if Sally wanted to tag along with him.
Mm-hmm.
Sally wanted to go. Carol didn't mind.
Mm-hmm.
Carol was going to stay back. She let Sally go. Now, fortunately, Carol would live to regret that decision. On August 18th, 1952, Eddie was driving down the highway when a car approached in the opposite direction in the other lane, I guess kind of pivoted towards him where the headlights were on him.
Yeah.
And he flashed his high beams to kind of get the guy's attention, like, hey, don't come into my lane.
Yeah.
Have you ever been like on a dark highway and you turn on your high beams and if for a second there you're blind? Like,
yeah.
So that's basically what happened because he did not see the car that was parked on the side of the road to the right. And the passenger side slammed in to the other car. Sally's head was crushed instantly. It took them 2 hours to get her out of the car, to get her body out of the car.
Yeah. Yeah.
She broke her neck. Her chest was crushed. She suffered massive amounts of internal injuries. She was dead on the moment of impact.
Well, that's good. That's least.
Good. Yeah.
You know.
The only way they were able to identify her body was from a scar on her leg. That's how bad the injuries were.
Mm-hmm.
Sally Horner died a few months after her 15th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Frank heard about the accident in jail, and he sent flowers to the funeral home from prison.
Ew.
Frank died from heart disease on March 22nd, 1966, and he was 69 years old. So he's in hell.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the weight of these experiences took a lasting toll on Ella. You know what? I feel bad for Ella. I think during that time, she didn't have any friends to guide her or show her what to do when your daughter has gone through this. Maybe in her mind, she needed to cube it.
Yeah, cube it.
Put it away. Yeah. So we don't know what Ella was going through, but unfortunately, what she did to Sally sucked.
Yeah.
It sucked for everybody.
And maybe because she also didn't know how to handle it, it was just better to not address it.
A lot of people did that. While specific details of Ella's life in later years are not technically documented, we can only kind of speculate. But we most certainly know that it probably haunted her by the tragedy of Sally's life because she was a loving mother.
And that was only a couple years after she came home.
Yeah.
Wow.
The case of Sally Horner had a big impact on law enforcement practices and community awareness regarding child abduction and abuse. The police and the FBI emphasized the importance of public awareness in preventing similar crimes. Community education programs and stricter monitoring of known offenders became more prominent in efforts to safeguard children.
Yeah.
The case also shedded light on the need for better support systems for victims of such crimes. But Sally's story wasn't over. Russian-American author Vladimir Nabokov used Sally's ordeal as inspiration for his critically acclaimed controversial novel, Lolita, in 1955. The plot is deeply unsettling and may be triggering for some readers.
Sure.
Lolita was published in 1955. It sold 100,000 copies in the
In the
first like
first
3 weeks.
Holy
Yeah.
shit.
How many
Wow.
sickos are out there? Because this is a very sick book. It's not technically a true crime. It's alleged. He's not saying like this is the true crime story of Sally.
Yeah.
This book was very dark. It sold 50 million copies worldwide.
I want to read it. I want to read it.
It is one of the most popular and controversial books of the 20th century.
I have a choice in my English studies of a novel to read, like for one of the classes. I think that's a good one.
You know what? I would like to hear what you think about this guy. So Lolita explores some of the most twisted and depraved aspects of obsession and manipulation. The story is narrated by a middle-aged man who becomes dangerously infatuated with a 12-year-old girl who he nicknames Lolita. Apparently, Vladimir had a strong case of writer's block. When Sally's case was back in the news, her death inspired him.
Yes, yeah. It was the check box that he needed to continue, it sounds like.
Yeah, and he wrote Lolita. The story is allegedly, because once again, he didn't really say this is her story, but it's her story.
Sure.
It's based on Sally's trauma, centering on a predator's fixation, manipulation, abduction, and abuse of a minor. The novel dives into the darker aspects of the human psyche with complexities and disturbing detail. However, it is a work of fiction.
Sure, of course.
It's listed as a work of fiction, but be warned, if you do read it, the author's depiction of child sexual abuse is profoundly unsettling in this book. Vladimir stated the other inspiration was a poem written by Edgar Allan Poe called Annabel Lee.
Oh.
Vladimir was a problematic writer, and this is like the most diplomatic way I can say, because out of 16 of his works, more than half were about child abuse. Horrible. So pedophilia was his theme in most of his books.
There's got to be something behind that psychologically.
Yeah. Well, that's all I'm going to say about his works. If you read the book, please, I need to know. I need to know if
I need to read the book now.
I want to end the story with crime chat reminder to chatters or anybody who is listening. If you or someone you know is affected by child sexual abuse, please remember that there is help available. If you want to grab a pen and write down these 3 services, the first one is the National Sexual Assault Hotline, which is 1-800-656-HOPE. This is available 24/7 if you ever are struggling or if you need to talk to somebody. Next one is the Child Help National Child Abuse Hotline, which is 1-800-4A-CHILD. And this one has dedicated professionals that treat victims of child abuse. And the other one is RAIN, which stands for Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network. And this is the largest anti-sexual violence organization. www.rainn.org. If you're listening and you need assistance, please remember that you're not alone. There are people who care and want to help. So don't wait. Reach out if you feel that you need to talk to somebody. But I just felt like I needed to just
of course.
remind
you
people
or somebody you know, like think of Ruth. If Ruth had that capability and figure out like what her next steps should be.
She's a hero.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ruth. But that's my story.
Oh, gosh.
I know.
Wow. That is you do some sad stories.
I'm sorry. I know.
I need you to bring a supernatural back again.
I'll do that for my next one.
Okay. Oh, my gosh. That was so sad. Poor Sally. She lost her father. She knows she's trying to cope, having a hard time at home, like financially, and like her mom is super stressed out. She gets kidnapped, abused, sexually abused, taken to various different locations, giving false names. Finally is able to be rescued, and then she's killed in a car accident. Jeez. Yeah. Poor thing. Well, Sally, I'm glad you got your wings.
Absolutely. You deserve better.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Well, because I don't want to leave you hanging, chatter. For more information on this case, please check out After That Crime Chat. And I have a picture of her when she was 15, and she is absolutely just, it's just, it's sad. We are also available on Patreon. Don't forget.
Don't forget to follow us on all of our socials, Crime Chat with Nat and Kat on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and X. See what we got going on. And we just entered the Signal Awards, the 3rd annual Signal Awards. So if you saw
Yes,
our posts on that, winners will be announced in October, and we entered the limited series true crime category.
We did.
Yes. We entered the 2-parter on the MH370 disappearance. If you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it. Episode 76 and 77.
Remember, Crime Chat with Nat Cat. When you become a VIP chatter to our Patreon, you'll have access to bonus episodes, behind the scenes, bloopers, and free merch. And check out some merch in the works.
Yes, be sure to check out our next episode. It is a chatter request from my friend Denise. Mm-hmm. We call her D-Nice because that's how her name is spelled. But she requested this extremely disgusting story of Letitia Stotch. I'm not going to give you too much information because you need to hear about it when I tell the story.
I never heard of it, so this is going to be good. Okay.
Ridiculous. Yes.
Don't want to miss it.
We'll see you at the next Crime Chat. Bye.
Bye.